Welcome to our Board Ghost Primer for Companion's Tale.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop. Been waiting for a minute there, but has it been forever? 'Cause dying don't agree with me.
This is our primer for Companion's Tale. The game was designed by Laura Simpson, and it was recently released on retail after a successful Kickstarter. This is a story and map-making game. The main sort of meat of the story is in the role of companions as you tell the story of a hero. So no one takes on the actual hero role. The game is for 4 players with some variations that let you play other roles, but primarily the main game is for 4 players and takes about 2.5 hours to play. The equipment that you'll need is the cards that come with the game, the rulebook, some paper for your map or a whiteboard. The bigger the paper, the better, and some drawing utensils. And the players are going to take turns in various roles, build the world, tell the story, and over the course of a prologue, 3 acts with some scenes within, and an epilogue. So for setup, you take the 3 decks, this face deck, which is a bunch of pictures, the companion deck, which are sort of descriptors of companions, their titles basically, and then the theme deck, which are themes and little prompts for scenes. And you shuffle those decks each and place them and your big piece of map paper in reach of everyone. And as a group, you read through the overall structure of play that kind of lays out the following: that in the prologue, the first part, you're going to be drawing on the map as you answer the questions about the world. And in the 3 acts of the game, you'll take turns in the 4 different roles as you tell the hero's story. And each of those acts is broken into the historian phase, followed by 4 story rounds. So each person kind of taking on each of the roles in the 4 story rounds. So 4 turns in that, and then the biographer phase. After 3 acts, you go into the epilogue where you describe the last time your companion saw the hero. So going back to the prologue, you're going to take turns answering the 4 provided questions about the world from the perspective of an inhabitant in that world. And you can always ask the other players for suggestions. The first question is one single question, and then the next 3 are a choice of either or questions. Then that sort of builds out your world and you build your map as you go. So 3 big things that you want to keep in mind as you play: heroes, companions, and people are referred to by archetype or title. So places get names, but the hero is just hero. The companions are named by their archetype, by their title, and people should also be given sort of archetypal names or titles as a group. Each storyteller is an unreliable narrator, and truths should be passed through the lens of the teller. So you actively want to discourage consensus. That sort of goes into the next thing, but you're telling what you think it is as a player and as a companion and as each aspect of a role that you take. It's your perspective at that moment. And you actively want to avoid consensus and let you take on a different point of view from the facts that someone else presents. And don't try to be like, oh, the table all agrees. That doesn't have to be the case. So when you get into the 3 acts of storytelling, Act 1, you're going to tell the hero's origins, which also lets you establish the institutions and cultural norms that sort of create the need for the hero. And in each act, you start with the historian phase. So you draw a theme card from the theme deck, and all the players share that card. And taking turns in no particular order, each player will describe a historical event tied to that theme and draw an interpretation of that on the map. So that you start to build out more of the world. In the story rounds, which happens after the historian phase, you take turns as one of the following roles: cartographer, companion, witness, lore keeper. You rotate these roles and play out story scenes. You're going to do this 4 times, so everyone gets to play each role once. In Act 1, the first person to volunteer as cartographer takes that role, and the other roles are handed out clockwise, and you keep that order/rotation throughout all the other acts and other scenes. And you set 4 companion cards. These are the sort of archetypes face up as the cartographer begins. The cartographer is going to look over the map and point out recent or relevant events and adjust the map as needed. Then the companion begins their turn. But as the turn continues, the cartographer is actually going to continue to adjust the map to reflect what they interpret the story as, and their interpretation of the story. Companions tell a story of their companion and a hero. So how that's going to work is they're going to draw 2 theme cards, pick one that they like, and discard the other. They then pick the companion prompt, the archetype that calls to them. This is their archetype. And then they randomly pick a face card from the face deck. So that's the face. So now they have 3 things. They have a theme, an archetype, and a face. And they're going to use this to tell a story from a first-person perspective. After telling the story from their perspective of their companion with the hero, they're going to re-up the companion cards for the next player and hold on to those 3 cards, the theme, archetype, and face, for later. But they're going to kind of reset the archetypes for the next person. On the witness's turn, they look at a part of the map that's not inhabited by the companion and hero based on the last companion's tale, and they're going to take a previous event, maybe from a previous story round or the historian phase, and describe how things have moved forward as time passes. So if there was a landslide or something in the world that happened that was inciting, then maybe that's taken more of a course. And so the witness is going to describe that happening from their perspective. Then on the lore keeper's turn, they'll decide a piece of lore that reflects on part of the realm's culture. It could be a song, a fable, a mural, a cuisine. There's something cultural that reflects on the realm as the realm is developing. Once you've kind of got all that sorted, you rotate roles and you can complete that until you've done those 4 story rounds, till everyone's played the role once, one of each of the 4 roles once. At the end of the act, once you've done all those, you go to the Biographers Phase. This is the last part of an act. Each player chooses a companion controlled by another player, and in third person, you describe something unfortunate, amusing, or scandalous about that companion. You are the most unreliable at this moment, where you are putting out your interpretation of fact about this companion and casting dispersions that may or may not be true. Then you go into Act 2, and Act 2 plays out very similar to Act 1. The kind of goal there is to describe the hero's rise to fame and early conflict. And this is also where you're going to set up threats for the third act. So you're going to play Act 2 as in Act 1, so each player will have 2 companions by the end of Act 2. You go through all those steps again, the historian phase, the 4 rotations in the story round, and the biography phase. Then you go to Act 3. So this is sort of where the world is on the edge of disaster, and the hero doesn't have to be explicit how is going to deal with this disaster. And you should either, if it's not there already, you want to be pushing it there. So the biggest differences in this act is that the players are going to put their companions and face cards in front of them, and we're going to discard everything else and shuffle all the theme cards that we've used so far or discarded so far together for historian and storytelling. So we don't pull any new themes out. We're kind of recycling themes that we have gone through and seen already. And we set everything else aside. So each player's turn, they're going to choose, instead of choosing a new archetype and new companion, they're going to pick from the 2 companions and draw their themes from the sort of recycled theme deck. So after playing all of Act 3, you go to the final phase, which is the epilogue. And each player in turn, in any order again, kind of jumps in and tells an epilogue for one or both of their companions. And they're going to describe the last time that their companion parted from the hero and mark that on the map. So just kind of take note of when their companion left the hero. Once you get the hang of it, though, there's really good prompt cards. Everything is laid out very well for you. And it's a great map-making game that helps you build a world. And it's kind of fun to have something that's antithetical to the standard collaborative group storytelling. That's a big challenge. So if you're facilitating this game or teaching it, there's a great guide at the back of the book. In fact, half the book is just how to teach, how to play guide, and variations, like playing with different sets of players, playing with a villain character instead of a hero character. So really pushing different ways to play is really, it's great when designers kind of think about hacks to their own game and put that out there for you. So again, a few things to keep in mind. Big one, avoid consensus. Actively discourage sort of talking about how it all ties together. It's something that, again, in a normal collaborative storytelling game, you actually strive for this. You want kind of table consensus rules and people, what the table sort of collectively decides, majority is what goes. But the spirit of this game is to have a unique take for each player. So you want to not have consensus. You want a lot of loose ends and sort of different ways of looking at things. More to that, avoid the temptation to help or provide unrequested feedback. So you're not going to jump in and add flavor or something unless someone says, I can't really think of something. Otherwise, you let them take the reins and tell their tale, and from their perspective, you aren't collaborating in the same way. You're kind of passing it off more like exquisite corpse, and you let the other players keep their agency. Lastly, you want to kind of keep it brief. Less is more, let it all build, and don't try to paint the whole picture on each of your turns. Really, the meatiest section is going to be the companion section. Everything else should be kind of quick and one-liner as much as you can. So overall, too, remember the hero. Make sure to include the companion and the hero in the companion stories. It's a story about revealing companions, but it's also about building this mystery of the hero and who they truly are, or were. The other thing, though, is avoid the hero. If you're not in the companion round of one of the acts, don't talk about the hero or their impact in the world. That's a big one. Like, the companions set up the sort of negative space of the hero and fill in their archetype. The other places are there to help build the world around the hero and keep things moving, make a richer tapestry. And it'll get tiresome to just kind of have everything reiterate what the hero's doing and keep following on their actions. So it's better not to. Also, you want to keep the weight of your turn in mind. If you're a companion, look for ways to get your personality, history, and point of view into the tale. Also, try to put something new on the map, like a location. If you're the historian, give a glimpse of another part of the world, a brief history, update on a place we're unfamiliar with. Look for opportunities to introduce new locations and people in the world. Also, keep the map simple. Don't take up too much of it with each new addition. You're going to play and draw on the map like crazy, so don't go too big. And you're nobody's Rembrandt is one of the big sort of notes in here. Don't make something that's hard to interpret or is going to take a long time to draw. Just get it out simple because everyone's going to be drawn on this thing. Overall, the game plays quickly, gives you the tools to describe the world and people in it, and the rulebook has those great variations for alternate player counts, doing villains, etc. Can't recommend it enough. Again, Companion's Tale. You can go check out our playthrough of it. We're going to hopefully get it to the table more. You can get it on PDF, so you can print it out, or you can get the nice full-color version that they put out, which is really nice with the face cards. They're all great illustrations. The game was designed by Laura Simpson, and she got a great team of people together to help her put it all into a nice package. And again, it was recently a successful Kickstarter, so you can learn more about it if you go look for Companion's Tale on Kickstarter as well.
Dying don't agree with me.